Just got done watching Young Justice for Kirblog. I know, and now here I am to talk about it. And I know that all of you who have seen the show already are going to be like, wow, Chris, you're 5 fucking years late. Like, good, thank you, I know. But to everybody who hasn't seen the show, shame on you. But don't worry, because I'm not going to spoil much. I just wanted to share my thoughts on this, because I figured off the heels of watching through the Spectacular Spider-Man series during the month of Mayerville, or, you know, as we shortly got into that month, I figured I would jump into taking on this show, because I found out that it was also overseen by the fantastic Greg Weisman. And I thought, okay, well, you know what? I've been meaning to watch this show for a long time anyway, and I actually can't believe it's been 5 years, no, not even 6 years actually, since it started airing. I didn't even realize how long it had been since the show had first come out, and like how long it's been since it ended, and you know, this kind of whole thing with that. I wanted to talk about this also because of my kind of just recently finding out about this whole possibility of there getting a third season, which I'll talk about later. But Young Justice, wow, holy shit, I actually liked this even more than Spectacular Spider-Man, and that's saying something because I loved the shit out of that show. For those of you who missed the Kirblog that I did with Ben Diskin, talking about that series, but wow, yeah, this was a solid 2 seasons of amazing stuff. I remember when this show first came out and I was hearing about it, I wasn't so much scoffing at it, but I was very surprised by its presence, because the fact that, like, and I think Greg Weisman has even talked about this, the fact that this was a lot of pressure, you know, when the show started, but the fact that it was just off the heels of Teen Titans and Justice League had wrapped up, like, within the last, like, few years prior to that, and the fact that they, you know, jumped straight into doing, you know, a whole new interpretation of the universe with those characters, and it wasn't in continuity with anything from the DC animated universe as it was you know, maybe even to some extent kind of a risky move, but it's one that I'm glad that they took, because what we got out of it was just such an amazing, and you know, you guys know, I think I've probably talked before about, I love Justice League and I love Teen Titans. I actually don't quite know if I can even say whether I like Young Justice more or less, because they're all very different shows. Even Justice League, I think, is kind of closer to how this is more so than Teen Titans, because Titans was much more aimed for kids. This was not aimed for kids. This show had a lot of stuff in it that I was like, wow, this was on daytime hours of Cartoon Network somehow. Jesus Christ. Yeah, it was really, it was such a, like, joyous surprise at, like, how fucking good it was. Really great choice of main characters to start off with in both seasons, and you know, how they utilize them. I don't even know if I can actually pick a favorite. It's funny, as I was watching through the show, I was talking with Xander and a few other folks who had already long since seen the series, and hearing a lot of, I guess, at the time complaints about some of the characters. Like, apparently people don't like Miss Martian very much, and I guess, I don't know, maybe I sort of understand, because, like, oh, you know, she's the peppy, you know, upbeat kind of one, but I thought she was just as good as any of the characters. You know, the ones that I went in, like, knowing plenty about was, like, you know, really just Robin, and I guess technically Kid Flash, because he was Wally, and I'm familiar with Wally specifically because of Justice League and his kind of sarcastic attitude. I don't really know much about Barry Allen from Flash. I haven't seen a whole lot of material with that version of him, or, you know, that era of Flash, I guess you could say. And Aqualad, I mean, all my exposure to him was really from the Will Wheaton Teen Titans version of him before, who is funny. But yeah, Calderon, this version of Aqualad as the leader figure, so fucking cool. And Carrie Payton, who, you know, I had heard from Teen Titans, did a fucking stupendous job on him. And if those of you who haven't seen the Teen Titans Go episode where they cross over with Young Justice, please go find that, because it's quite a treat. But yeah, Miss Martian, Artemis, and even Artemis I liked right away. I was really intrigued by kind of her whole deal from the beginning, and kind of the mystery surrounding her. And even Superboy, which I went in, like, kind of like not really knowing what to expect. I had kind of some, like, meh feelings about the character in general, and I just heard he was kind of a clusterfuck in terms of, like, the rights surrounding him and, like, why he exists or whatever. But Yeah, like he might even be one of the very few genuinely like brooding teenage characters that I've ever genuinely liked and like connected to through storytelling like this. But yeah, the even in the second season with some of the characters that they added to the main cast in terms of like the kid team and everything. I think my only disappointment was that some of them didn't really get the chance to do a whole lot of stuff. They were just kind of like helping out with missions, still having a purpose and everything. But I would have loved to like just learn more about what their deal was and kind of what their whole backstories were and everything. Because some of them we knew. I mean, I like Beast Boy a lot. A Blue Beetle I actually really liked. Sometimes he was a little annoying, but because some of the what is one of my very few criticisms, some of the characters that were like kind of like switching between languages like in the middle of sentences were like kind of like, why are you doing that kind of thing. But to be fair, Blue Beetle, the way that he speaks with like kind of like shifting into speaking Spanish once in a while, Neo Mutant from Tome almost talked like that before in the awful first iteration of episode 7 script. So I'm not one to talk, I suppose. Yeah, and there were and then the good use of the Justice League characters, because in Justice League, what I really liked about Superman in that show, for instance, is I felt that was kind of one of the only that I've seen so far, one of the only good uses of Superman, as a character in general, because him having a sense of responsibility over a massive team like the Justice League, especially when they get 700 million more members or whatever, and during Justice League Unlimited, I felt that was an interesting kind of direction to go with his character in general. In the case of the Justice League and Young Justice, they're all kind of in that position of like having to be caretakers and take responsibility for not only their own duties and kind of like the brief glimpses of what we see with what they're doing is almost kind of like a kid's view into adulthood of like not fully understanding how everything works, but like wanting to be part of that, wanting to ascend into adulthood and be part of that that whole setup and everything. And of course, eventually that would go on to happen, for a lot of these characters. But the kind of like subversive sort of take on having sidekicks be fed up with being sidekicks and wanting to prove themselves so they can grow up along with the superheroes that they've been serving alongside and everything. I think is really cool. I think it ended up making for like a really, really intriguing point of development for everybody, and the fact that it was also kind of put in this like Black Ops like spy sort of show, with superheroes, no doubt, like no less, I should say. Just very surprising and made for such a fucking cool concept that lent itself. I mean, every episode there were I don't even think I can think off the top of my head of any like really shitty episodes. Like everything was generally pretty solid, and I really was binging the show. Like I was just so entranced by everything going on with it. It was kind of blowing my mind a little bit to hear like different voices coming out of, well, not that I'm not used to hearing different actors coming out of a lot of the Justice League characters from like the direct-to-video movies and shit like that, but hearing like some people that had been in Justice League, like Kevin Michael Richardson voicing other characters, and Phil Lamar, was all over it as different guys, etc. That was kind of freaky. I was like, whoa, this is messing with my head a little bit. In the second season, they had a very interesting kind of usage of specifically the team from the original Justice League DC Animated Universe series as well. And what I loved about this is it was, what's nice about a lot of these superhero shows is I like their kind of anime-esque quality of like they trust that an American audience following it would be engaged enough to want to follow the plot episode to episode, and even more so than Spectacular Spider-Man. This is a show where it's like you have to know, you have to be paying attention to what is happening in this overarching story. I mean, each of the individual episodes are still their own episodes, but the way that they have all these subtleties placed around. Like I remember even one of my other criticisms that turned out to just kind of be invalid once I realized I was kind of like off-put by Red Arrow or Speedy, his kind of like oh god, like constantly annoyed, frustrated kind of disposition. And my friends were just I don't want to get too spoilery, but my friends were saying like there's a good reason for that. Sit tight, keep watching. And when I was kind of proven wrong, I guess not proven wrong, but like my confusion over some of that stuff was then later like, oh, that's why that was. There were so many little tiny payoffs like that with the characters and with the little plot threads happening, from season to season and from episode to episode that it just, oh God, it was so well executed. The other thing is, it's really, you really have a good show when it's difficult to pick out a single main character, because even as I was, before I started recording this, I was looking at a picture of all the main cast and everything, and like looking through all the leads, and the story, and I was like, oh, maybe this character's my favorite. But I like this one a lot too. And like the mainest of the mains, like Robin, Aqualad, Kid Flash, Superboy, Miss Martian, Artemis, like those of like the really like most heavily focused on ones. They all have such rich arcs of development. Like I felt like throughout each of because the two seasons were kind of, I feel like, even though they led into each other, they felt like individual sagas, I guess you could say. And the development that all of those particular characters go through in both of those seasons was really, it was like well paced out. It was like keeping me like invested in everybody, and like there were very few characters that I weren't like rooting for. Like actually like being like, oh man, like I gotta see, like I hope that this goes okay with such and such and everything's gonna be okay with whatever, because I went in blind. I knew the only thing that I knew were what characters were in the show. That was all that I was aware of. But otherwise, everything else, it was just kind of like I was going in blind, and more so than Ultimate Spider-Man, this is probably the signification of like how much more I liked it. Is it was really making me go, oh, a lot. Like when something like crazy would happen, like when there like be a big plot twist or something, or just like something crazy would happen with the character or whatever. Like I'd be saying the word "oh" in so many different astounded ways throughout. Just oh God, and really good use of like some of the more obscure characters. Great use of the and an interesting and different kind of use compared to the previous shows of the well-known characters like the Justice League and a lot of the more recurring villains like Luthor and etc. Surprising how somebody like Joker was only in like one episode. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. But that might have been the case of like, hey, we want to go kind of a different route with this and give it kind of its own identity, which I think it very much does, and I'm glad that it does. Because. I'll say that in terms of a lot of the direct-to-video, DC movies that have been coming out as late, I am excited for Killing Joke still. That's going to be cool. But yeah, like a lot of those are kind of hit or miss for me in terms of like how they utilize the characters. There's some that are fantastic that I adore, like Justice League Doom and Flashpoint Paradox, and there are other ones that are not so great, like Assault on Arkham, which I despised. But with this series, like it was, it really made its own mark. It felt very much like it wasn't trying to be the Justice League, it wasn't trying to be Teen Titans. It was very much like, okay, we have access to all of these different characters, and let's try to do something that hasn't quite been done with the DC universe before in this kind of in this animated form. Because and I think even at the time I might have been kind of like halfway, like, oh, is it like half Teen Titans and half Justice League in a way or something? And it's not even that. It's really just it's kind of just its own thing that happens to use characters from both of those sections of the DC superhero mythos, I guess you could say. But yeah, and then also kind of what I was saying before about the arcs of the two seasons. What I'm glad about is that, like, okay, if say the second season didn't get picked up and it was just like that set of like 13 episodes or whatever, I forget how many episodes it was. I think it was 26. Either way. But if it was just those by like, in and of itself, it still would have been a good beginning and middle and end. And obviously there'd still be more out there, that like, oh, like what's going to happen next and everything. And I'm glad there was more, which is why I want more. But I was really satisfied that, like, even with where the show, ended, 3 years ago now? I think it ended in like 2013 by this point, when all the controversy happened and everything. But yeah, the fact that like even just the show as it is right now, whether it gets the chance to go on or not, had like a pretty satisfying conclusion to everything that they set up, and there was still room for plenty more. But But just the fact that like it wasn't like with Spectacular Spider-Man where it's like, okay, cool, that was a great ride and I really enjoyed that, and a lot of stuff got resolved, but not everything. And oh God, no, this is the last episode. Oh dear God, no, please. I didn't get that feeling with this, and I'm very happy because like it was an even more in-depth, more amazing ride to go on for all the episodes that I watched. But yeah, I know I'm super late to the party, but I'm very glad I finally made the time to watch it, especially after this recent thing that's come up with, keep binging it. And that's the thing, as I'm gonna probably talk a little bit more about that on this next weekend's Kirblog topic, which I will not go into just yet. Although I will say that at the time this is going up, I might be in the middle of recording it with a certain person who may or may not have something to do with this show. And no, it's not Ben Diskin, but I won't spoil who they are. But I'll probably be talking more about that in depth in this weekend's Kirblog. But I will say, to those of you out there who have not seen the show yet, highly recommend that you check it out. If you have Netflix, or if it's not on European and otherwise Netflix, get the DVDs and Blu-rays. Please, for the love of God, you will thank me later. It is a fantastic show, and it is absolutely worth your time. And if you have seen the show already, and you haven't been rewatching it on Netflix, please do that. Even if you're having it on silent in the background, just keep giving more views and more ratings and more everything as much as you possibly can to the show on Netflix, because I think that there is a genuine chance of this getting to come back for a third season. Again, I'll probably be talking more about kind of the specifics of that, but yeah, that's just my little kind of parting word is like, if you haven't checked it out, please check out this show. It is absolutely amazing. And if you've already seen it, and if you're a fan, please, I insist you watch it again on Netflix if you're not already, and keep doing that. Hashtag keep binging YJ. That's right. I'm going to use that. I haven't used the fucking hashtag out loud on a Kirblog before, but do that, please, for the love of God. So that's it. That's going to wrap us up. So in the comments below, if you have or have not seen Young Justice, leave your thoughts, anything about it whatsoever. I'm assumingly, if you have seen it, then I guess beware of spoilers, everybody, if you haven't seen the show yet. Because I'll open up, you can leave specific thoughts about the show in the comments that may or may not be spoilery if you want, because, I can't control that anyway, so, do whatever you like. But yeah, and look forward to my special guest on this weekend's Kirblog. It's going to be really cool, I hope. I hope I don't fuck it up. I'm a little mildly nervous, but it should be really cool. And and if you have future Kirblog topic suggestions for other stuff, such as reviewing other shows. I may or may not also be in the middle of watching another new show involving superheroes and giant robot cats that is on Netflix right now. If you have topic suggestions for other shows to review, or other topics in general, anything you like, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. Hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, or leave a comment, whatever you want to do. And otherwise, I will catch you all on the flip side. Bye.